When you lose 10 out of 12 games, there's a lot to worry about. We're going to tell you what the biggest worry about the Cincinnati Reds is right now.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, welcome in. Thanks for making Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcasting network in all the land. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. That's Jeff Carr. We love talking about the Reds. On today's show, we're going to talk about the tale of two Reds teams. That is the Reds of so long ago, April of 2026, and the Reds team that we're saddled with right now in May. Oh boy, two different teams. The Reds, hey, shout out to Nick Krall. Thanks for listening to yesterday's show. The Reds went out and added some pitching depth. And it's one of the guys we talked about adding, Jeff. Clearly, Nick Krall's an everydayer. We're going to talk about the Reds' additions to the starting rotation here in just a few minutes. But where we are going to begin is trying to isolate an area of this team that we can identify as the area that has us the most worried. I don't know if I can complete this exercise because everything has me worried right now. So I'm going to punt and let you go first, Jeff. What is the area of this Cincinnati Reds team that has you the most worried?
I kind of feel like you're right. You're spoiled for choice at this point. Reds have lost 10 of 12. There are a lot of statistical categories in which they are in the bottom 5 right now. And that's for season long. That's not just the month of May as opposed to the month of April, but we'll break that down in a little bit later on in the show. For me right now, it's the lineup, Steve. Like, I am glad that Terry Francona shuffled it a bit. I am glad that he moved Elly De La Cruz up in the lineup and Sal Stewart subsequently followed him. It was nice to see Elly De La Cruz come up to bat with only 1 out in the first inning instead of 2. But for me, like, it just seems to be rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic at this point, because I think that at some point, 1 or 2 of these guys are going to break out. Like, we always do this game in February, right? Like, boy, what happens if everybody breaks out? And we always say, well, we know that not everybody's going to have a good year, but can somebody have a good year? It feels like everybody is slumping, except for Elly De La Cruz right now. Elly De La Cruz became the first Reds shortstop since Barry Larkin in the year 2006, I think is what they said on the broadcast, to have 5 straight multi-hit games. He needs help, Steve. And I know your boy Tyler Stevenson about tried to give him some help with a grand slam in the first inning on Wednesday, and then the Reds as a team combined for 4 hits after the first inning. 2 of those leadoff doubles, and both of those leadoff doubles were strained, because the Reds just can't seem to hit with runners in scoring position this year. It's making me pull my hair out. I love talking about the Cincinnati Reds, Steve. Quite frankly, I want to admit something. There's a lot of my mood that is tied up in this team. That's probably unhealthy. But my gosh, right now, I'm having a hard time with it.
Listen, there's a lot to unpack. While I agree with you that the way this team hits with runners in scoring position is a problem, the pitching staff is much more of a problem. The Tyler Stevenson grand slam should have been enough to beat the Washington Nationals, and it was not. Couple things to address with this pitching staff.
Wait, they weren't playing the Dodgers last night?
They were not. But boy, did they sure make it look like they were. Let me tell you. First things first, Nick Lodolo gets absolutely shelled again. And I don't know that I fault Nick Lodolo. Clearly, he needed 2 or 3 more rehab starts before the Reds activated him, and they simply didn't have that luxury based on injuries. It was Nick or nobody. So Nick Lodolo is up here rehabbing in the major leagues. That's what's going on. You combine that with the fact that he is probably trying to, tweak the grips on his pitches to avoid that blister coming back again, and we get the not so good Nick Lodolo right now. That's just the way that this is going to be. The bullpen, as good as it was in April, did they play a little over their head? Probably. But as good as they were in April, they are equally as bad in May. Are they this bad? I hope not. Guys like Tony Santillan have now allowed. Tony Santillan, Jeff, has allowed 4 home runs in a row. 4 appearances, 4 home runs, and he gave up runs, if you go back 5 appearances ago. He gave up runs in that as well, just not a home run. Tony Santillan has a problem. Tony Santillan has something wrong. Tony Santillan is not the guy that he once was, and to the point that I don't think Terry Francona and Derek Johnson can continue to run Tony Santillan out there in the 8th and the 9th inning. They're going to have to get him out of the high leverage situations and see if they can push some kind of reset button. And in the meantime, you're just going to have to figure something else out. Here's another stat, Jeff Carr, with this pitching staff that makes me identify it as what I'm most worried about. The Cincinnati Reds have walked in yet another run with the bases loaded. They have now walked in 15 runs this season with the bases loaded. For context, the major league record for walking in runs during the course of the season was set in 1999 by the Seattle Mariners with 28. The Cincinnati Reds are on pace to do this 60 times this season in 2026. It cannot stand. It cannot continue. Something has got to give. I am most worried. I am terrified about this pitching staff right now. The area of this team that on paper, if we go way back into February in a kinder, gentler baseball time, when you and I were hopeful and in a good mood and had less gray hair, back in February, we looked at this pitching staff and we're like, oh, right, here we go. We got 10 starting pitchers to play with. We got an overhauled bullpen to play with. We got pitchers galore. We got a surplus, Jeff. We got squat. We got nobody except Chase Burns right now that I have any amount of confidence in.
It's wild how much it's devolved. And like, I think back in February, we tried to identify a couple of X factors, like outside of Elly De La Cruz. Obviously, he's the guy that makes everything go, but you got to have some help in this lineup. But that's the same way with this pitching staff, where we're just like, it felt like, okay, you got Hunter Green, you got your ace, you got your Cy Young candidate. Well, then he goes down. And then you got, okay, well, we got Lodolo. Well, and he goes down. And well, then you got Andrew Abbott. Well, then he starts off really rough. Well, you got Brady Singer. No, he's not good either. And then you got Chase Burns. Okay, thankfully, because
you forgot about all the people that were saying, well, you got Rhett Lauder.
Nope. Like, and look, if everything was equal, and if the pitching staff was healthy, Rhett Lauder and Brandon Williamson would have both started the year in AAA on a bit of a rehab, work up to the point that you're ready to get called up. We probably wouldn't have seen them till around this time of the year.
Just a quick interjection right there, because people are gonna get in the comment section and say, well, but they would have been pitching in AAA too, wouldn't they? They would still be throwing it in. Yeah, the pitching at the AAA level, the schedule is different. They pitch once a week. Starting pitchers pitch once a week in AAA. So it would have been less wear and tear. They would have been brought along slower. They would have been rehabbed back in a more appropriate manner.
And it's very strategically focused. Like, there's a plan in place. This is what you're going to throw. This is how many times you're going to throw it. That sort of things. Whenever you're in AAA, it's not stressful. Not like this, where the Reds needed them and they just weren't ready to be needed. And that's what we saw happen. But the thing that kills me the most about the pitching staff as a whole, and it continues to be the case, albeit they've turned them into home runs here recently, is that they walk so many batters. The walks per nine of this pitching staff is abysmal right now. The strikeout to walk ratio of this pitching staff is abysmal right now. And you just feel like at this point that they throw it in the zone to a point where they miss a barrel. So I think you're right. I think it's the pitching staff. And as much as we want to belabor the lineup, and there are points where it feels like they just need to score and they don't know how to, it's the fact that this pitching staff is just not helping them at all. And Barry Larkin brought up the point, they were talking about how bad the bullpen has really flipped as we get into the month of May. And we'll talk about that more in depth in a little bit. But to his point, the Reds were only down 3-2 whenever Brady Singer left the game on Tuesday night, and the bullpen gave up 7 runs. And then in this game, this was Nick Lodolo giving up a bunch of runs, sure, but when the Reds needed the bullpen the most, it did not help them out. In either case, as much as TJ Youngton gave them length, he gave up the lead. As much as Tony Santillan Well, he just gave up. He gave up the game. So it's the pitching staff is killing them right now. They lived with the pitching staff last year. They're dying with it this year.
Yeah, there was one. How many walks were there in this game last night, Jeff? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe La Rosas needs to switch from strikeouts to walks, and we said it at like 8 or 9. If
that's the other part too, like
at least the fans can get a reward out of this.
That's the other part too. Like they were right there on the cusp of getting free pizza in this game, and nobody cares because they didn't pitch well enough to keep them off the board. So that's been the fun part, right, about this season so far, is that we're super worried about the pitching staff. Well, the Reds addressed that in the kind of way that you would address, well, we ran out of toilet paper, so we had to go get more toilet paper. Like at some point, you just got to go get a body to fill this rotation, and that's exactly what they did.
If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and can help you cancel the ones that you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so that you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, you can set alerts, you can get notified and stay on top of your upcoming bills. It just makes everything more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
Thanks for making Locked On Reds part of your day, and we really appreciate you for making Locked On Reds part of your day right now, because talking about these Cincinnati Reds is not easy, but we're glad that you're alongside us here today, and we invite you to join the Locked On Reds Everydayer Club. Go to lockedonreds.supercast.com to learn more about that. Get an ad-free feed for the audio side of things, and you get access to the group chat in the Discord and so much more. Learn more over at lockedonreds.supercast.com. That link is in the description of today's episode below. And yes, my unhinged metaphor notwithstanding, Steve, this also reminds me of a moment the other day. We were trying to make nachos, and for some reason didn't have any cheese in the fridge. I don't know how this happened. But we live next to a Walgreens, so I ran to the Walgreens because I'm figuring, yeah, sure.
You didn't just make
shredded cheese.
You didn't just make Bristol nachos? You just didn't?
Thankfully, no. Why you bring that word up? Oh, gosh. Here we are talking about a team that's lost 10 out of 12, and you bring up Bristol. What are we trying to make this better? Anyway, no cheese. Go to Walgreens. They don't have cheese either, but they do have the nacho cheese sauce. I just had to grab the first thing that was there. I don't know what brand that was. I put it on the nachos. It worked. That's what the Reds did with Chris Paddack. And I would love to tell you that I'm taking credit for predicting something that happened, but I looked at who's available, and it was either they sign Chris Paddack, they trade for Eric Lauer, or they call you to pitch on Saturday. Those were the options. And while you might throw as many innings as Brady Singer does right now, I think that they picked the better option of it, but it's not to say that, like, they just reinvented their pitching staff here. Like, bringing in Chris Paddock was a good move, but I don't know that we're going to be sitting here at the end of the season going, wow, Nick Kroll, way to go with that one.
So this is what the Reds had to do. And you and I talked about this yesterday. This needed to be done. It had to be done. They had to get somebody. Yes. And this is the low-hanging fruit that was available. Now, I know everybody went straight to Paddock's baseball reference page, straight to his back of his baseball card, and are like, my God, a 7.63 ERA. Oh, well, how is this supposed to help? Well, number one, he started 6 games thus far, has thrown 30 innings. Cool. They need somebody that can throw innings. That's the first checkbox on the list. Here's the thing. Bear with me for just a second, Jeff. His ERA was, in fact, 7.63, but his FIP is 4.98. So he got a little unlucky. He was better than what the ERA says that he was. He was also pitching for the Fish. He was pitching for Miami, who just aren't really that good all the time. So I dismiss some of the results, but what I know is he's available. And right now, availability is the number one ability that this Cincinnati Reds team is looking for. So I have no problem with them signing him, running him out there. I think they should still be having conversations with your personal friend, David Bell, over in Toronto to get something done to bring Lauer in as well. Have another plan, because clearly things are going to get a little worse before they get better. And we don't know when Rhett Lauder is coming back. We don't know what else is going on with this pitching staff. Start stacking up some backup arms. All that being said, you better tell Davis Daniel he could earn himself an opportunity if he keeps going out there and pitching good. So that's what I would do. Now, I am with you. I am not expecting Chris Paddack to go out there and all of a sudden be in the conversation for Cy Young, to all of a sudden be throwing, 7 innings on the regular and a couple complete game shutouts. That's not what the Reds need him to do. What the Reds need him to do is throw 5 or 6 innings, keep the team in the ballgame, give up 3 runs or less. That is the requirement. That's where the bar is set, folks. That is what we consider a great starting pitcher performance right now. They need quality starts. If he can give them a quality start, if he can keep the Reds in the ball game, if he can keep the Reds in striking distance of doing something, that's a success story for Nick Krall making this pickup. It's not going to be pretty. It's not sexy. His stuff is not electric, but if he can keep the Reds in the ball game, this is a successful move.
At this rate, I would just settle for somebody that doesn't come in after the Reds score 5 and give up 4. Like, I'll be okay with that. And I think it's interesting. I mean, changes of scenery usually sometimes help. And he even had a quote. He was just like, you look at my stats to start the season. This is Chris Paddack talking. It's not ideal, right? It's never been how you want to start, but that doesn't define who you are. And it's pretty cool to see a group of guys like this, front office, coaching staff, players, all saying, hey, let's give this guy a chance. We know what he's capable of. I want to contribute any way I can, and excited to get back on the saddle. The other part of this too, Steve, is like, maybe if things aren't horrible and guys start coming back healthy, then we could talk about him being a long relief guy. If they need that, as the way that the bullpen is currently trending, we've got multiple guys that we might be missing between Pagan and Santillan. So maybe you've got another option there, or Lyon Richardson's pitching okay down in AAA, whatever that might be. The whole point here is they're adding bodies because they lost so many. And I continue to say, like, they had 10 guys. If you want to argue that Julian Aguiar was never really on that list because we didn't see him that much in spring training, fine. They had 9 guys. 60% of those guys are hurt. I cannot believe how crazy that is to say, but that's where we are. And that's why the Reds are in this position. This is not a situation where it's like they should have seen this coming. If you go into a season expecting 60% of your pitching staff to get hurt, I have questions. I really do.
You have to look at this. The Reds entered this season with almost 2 full rotations worth of starting pitchers, and they have exhausted the supply. Let that sink in. And yet still, this team is 1 game over 500. And yet still, this team is within striking distance of the division. So I don't know, Jeff, how it all shakes out, but I know that I did not see this coming. I did not see this kind of pitching turnover coming. It really is a struggle to find positives within this group of pitching to talk about right now. It's just not fun.
No, and it's a no risk move at this point, because I think that Derek Johnson has a chance to make him better. I mentioned on the emergency episode that I did yesterday, whenever the move was announced, that Chris Paddock has a 6-pitch mix that he uses. I almost wonder if Derek Johnson sets him aside, look, dude, maybe let's narrow that down to 4 really good pitches. Because when you throw 6 pitches, are you really throwing 6 elite pitches? I know he's got 3 different types of fastballs, a changeup, a slide, or a sweeper, and a curveball. So, I don't know, maybe whittle that down a little bit, and let's see what those 4 pitches could do for you. That could be an option. but also he's getting some good chase rate, like really trying to squint at what Chris Paddock's profile is. He gets good chase. He just doesn't finish the at-bat with a strikeout as much as he should. Maybe there's something there for Derek Johnson to work with. But the point is, they're not calling up some ridiculous guy that it will be, right now there is a number of guys that if you remember them from the last couple of years of the David Bell era, you are a true elite Reds fan to remember the guys that came up from the minor leagues to make some kind of random start. At least that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, you look at Chris Paddack and you look at his usage, Jeff. He primarily throws that four-seam fastball. He throws it about 32% of the time. He backs that up with a changeup that's not bad. His changeup is pretty good, and he throws that about 25 to 27% of the time. So those two pitches play. The real issue with what's left in his arsenal is, I think you're right, he's spread too thin. He's trying to do too much. He's got a sweeper that he throws 12% of the time. He's got a curveball he throws 9% of the time, and a sinker that he throws 9% of the time. I think you ditch that sinker, you ditch that curveball, you stick with the sweeper, you stick with the changeup, you stick with the fastball. You throw those three pitches, you throw them as effectively as possible, and you let Derek Johnson try to hone things in. You can work on that other stuff in the offseason. Right now, take your three best pitches and work them as best you can. And I think if he does that, we'll see better results than what he saw while he was pitching for Miami to start this year.
In my opinion, simplifying usually is the best course of action whenever something isn't going right. That's what Derek Johnson tells him to do.
Well, for the more learned folks that listen to this podcast, I'm sure you've heard the tale of two cities. Well, we're going to give you the tale of two Reds teams, the April Reds and the May Reds. We're breaking that down coming up next.
The NBA playoffs are rolling right along, and every possession matters just that much more. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. You could do that on the NBA playoffs, or you could do that on Reds baseball. Here today in the getaway day game, the let's hope they don't get swept by the Nationals day, and Chase Burns on the mound. Well, I don't know how I feel about the run line or the money line or anything like that, but the over-under for total runs in the game is set at 8. You got Chase Burns on the mound. You've got Foster Griffin, who has been the best pitcher for the Washington Nationals so far this season. Kind of feel like they're going to hit the under after a slugfest last night. Think that this will be a low-scoring game. Everybody trying to get out of the ballpark here and trying to get on a road trip as the Reds will head up to Cleveland for the Ohio Cup. So I say take the under on 8 total runs in this Thursday afternoon matchup for the Reds and the Nationals. That's all over at FanDuel.com. Head over there right now to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
If you can't watch us here on YouTube, we're on every single audio podcasting platform that's out there. If you find one we're not on and you need us to be there, send Jeff a message. He can probably make it happen for you if it needs to. Also over there in the audio channels, that's where a lot of great shows live. Former Reds reliever Mike Stanton on this show tomorrow. Well, he's in that feed every single day with his show. Sully's over there covering Major League Baseball. Lots of great stuff in the audio feed. So click subscribe here, click the notification bell here, click the subscribe button over there. You can take us on the road, take us in the car, take us to the gym, take Jeff for a long walk down by the river. He loves that. All right, Jeff, April and May. April, we were riding high. We were over 500 by a lot. The Reds were overachieving. The bullpen was unhittable. And even though the starting pitching suffered from injuries, the Reds just kept right on rolling. Even though half the lineup couldn't hit, the Reds just kept right on rolling. Oh, boy, did the luck run out.
Oh, I think, look, can you use up 9 lives in a month? It feels like that might be what the Reds did here. Because in the month of April, their pitching staff had a 4.05 ERA. That is including some rough starting pitching outings, and that's mostly from the bullpen. In the month of May, they have a 6.5 ERA, and that's before yesterday. It went up yesterday, so it's probably going to be closer to 7. And because I'm getting these numbers off Baseball Reference, and then when you look at the split between the bullpen now and the bullpen then, like we were talking about this before we really got into recording. Tony Santillan up through April 22nd. had 11 appearances and hadn't allowed a run. And from April 24th through last night, he had made 9 appearances and allowed runs in 6 of them, multiple runs in 3 of them. You talk about a night and day moment. Like, did his arm just give out at that point? It was like, look, we had a good run. You threw every other day last year, and you were doing pretty good early on that, but we cannot be throwing every other day this year too. We're just going to show you can't be high leverage. You can't be high leverage. I think he's going to hit the IL with like inflamed ERA or something at this point because of how May has gone for him. It's been a rough stretch, dude.
So the question that's on the table then, Jeff, is how do we get these May Reds to be closer to those April Reds, at least as far as results go? I think that Terry Francona started down a path with the changes to the lineup yesterday. He didn't quite get it right. I have a couple additional tweaks that I would love to see made. Number one, why, if you have both in the lineup of Will Benson and JJ Bleday, do you not put JJ Bleday at the leadoff spot? JJ Bleday right now batting average of 292. Will Benson 182. You dig deeper and you look at their on-base percentage. Will Benson's on-base percentage far below JJ Bleday. I think I've lead off JJ Bleday. I love moving up Elly De La Cruz. I love moving up Sal Stewart. I think you bring in Nate Lowe and you bat him clean up and you put everybody else down below. Terry's getting close. And then from a pitching standpoint, I was on Sirius Radio last night and the guys over there were asking me on the MLB channel there, what do we do about this bullpen? What do we do? What has to happen? And I'm like, you know what? If you guys can figure that out, drop me a note. We'll give you credit because who knows why everybody all forgot how to pitch at the same time and why nobody seems to know what the strike zone is in Major League Baseball. But that is where this bullpen is right now. And there is no magic answer for what they do. Do we juggle some of the roles? Yes. Are we waiting for Caleb Ferguson to come back? Well, I don't know if you saw his last outing down in Louisville. He's not ready yet. So it is going to be a while. So I think, you made the illustration earlier about rearranging the deck chairs. Yeah, there's going to need to be a lot of that, but you still got to get the right deck chairs in the right place in order to get a better result. And there are ways to squeeze a better result out of the team that's on hand right now because there are no magic hidden players walking through the door. That's not going to happen. So I think better utilization of the guys that are pitching fairly effective in the bullpen. Tony Santillan, get him out of the back innings of games. Connor Phillips, get him out of the back innings of games. Those guys need to be middle inning relievers right now until such time they prove otherwise. As far as the starting pitcher goes, your guess is as good as mine. And with the hitters, Jeff, I think you can still make some tweaks to get a little more results. I still like the idea of just making a lineup based on base percentage and let the chips fall where they may.
There were 2 funny calls that Terry Francona made on Wednesday night's game as well. To your point about like how you manage the roster and stuff like that. He said after Tuesday night's ball game in which Brian Hayes grounded into a double play to end the inning with bases loaded.
And Nate Lowe on the bench. Don't forget. And Nathaniel Lowe sitting on the bench.
That's part of this because after the game he was asked about that and he said, well, you can't pitch in a guy in the 4th inning after you start him because at that point, why do you start him? Guess what he did in the 4th inning whenever Will Benson came up to the plate and there's a left-hander on the mound.
What?
He pinch hit him. So there was that. And then there was the other thing where you had a leadoff double by Matt McClain and Dane Myers comes up to the plate. What's Dane Myers do?
Bunt in the air.
Stop bunting.
By the way, Dane Myers has never in his career successfully laid down a sack bunt. That stat, I would think, would be available to the coaching staff in the Reds dugout.
Is that a large enough sample size? 205 games. Yeah, 205 games. He has 0 bunt sacrifices. Yeah. But we're going to ask him to do it. It's going to happen today. That's why he popped it up to the pitcher. Let him swing. He's been hitting the ball pretty well. Like I don't understand those calls at all. But for me, Steve, one thing I want to end this podcast on, I think probably the most surprising thing to me, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. They ejected the fan that did the fan interference. There's cell phone video that I saw on social media, and I didn't pull it up before we hit record here, but There's cell phone video on social media
in the
of security kicking out the fan interference guy.
In the fine print of your MLB app tickets, and used to be on the back of every printed ticket when that was a thing, interfering with a ball in play can result in ejection from the ballpark. So the umpires called fan interference, which means that guy got ejected. Now, what I hope is that the Reds don't ban him from the ballpark, because they could also do that. So hopefully they didn't do that. Watching that replay, I think that call could have gone either way. I know you see it a little bit more clearer than I do as far as where that ball may or may not have hit if the fan hadn't reached out. Moral of the story, folks, is this is not Yankee Stadium. Your last name is not Bartman. Do not reach over the wall. Do not reach over the wall. That's what you got to tell yourself when you're in those front rows of seats. You just can't reach over.
All the number of home run balls that you see hit to like the first or second row of Great American Ballpark, and literally everyone is doing like the get out of the way, like, holy crap, look at this hot potato coming in, and this guy's leaning over to get it. No, I agree. I don't think, in my view of how that happened, it looked like it was going to stay in the ballpark, but that does not mean that I excuse the behavior, because if it stays in the ballpark, maybe it careens in a manner that Steer gets a triple, or maybe even an inside the park home run. There was a lot that could have happened there. I don't know, man. That was so weird to see that happen. I don't know that I've ever seen that happen in a Reds game. So it probably way back when at Riverfront, but I don't think I remember anything like that at Great American happening before. Just a culmination of a weird night at the ballpark for the Redlegs. And here we are still scratching our heads wondering what's going to happen next. Hopefully for that guy, he gets to see another game, though, because that would be a bummer to get banned for life after that.
Jeff, it is getaway day. The Reds are trying to avoid a sweep at the hands of the Washington Nationals out at GABP. We'll be back in your feeds tomorrow. Special show tomorrow, folks. Not going to be so much a breakdown of that game. Maybe drop in a bonus episode or a quick short talking about the getaway game. But tomorrow's show is going to be joined by Mike Stanton, former Reds reliever. He's going to be talking about his show over on the Locked On MLB channel. Going to be talking about all things pitching from a retired pitcher's perspective. We got questions.
Definitely going to ask him about Tony Santillan. Like, how does that work?
We got a
how
lot
do you
of
break out
things.
of that? Yeah.
So make sure you've clicked subscribe. Make sure you've clicked the notification bell so you don't miss that or any of the other great content we've got coming your way. We'll be back in your feeds. If anything big happens, any breaking news, special episodes will come your way. Click subscribe, click the notification bell. We'll keep gathering up the news, the notes, the rumors, the reports, and the information to keep you locked on Reds every single day. Maybe they need a basket like at Wrigley Field. If there was a basket, like you could reach out and it wouldn't matter.
I do remember seeing that Pete Crow Armstrong home run off of Graham Ashcraft last week would not have been a home run in any other ballpark.
Anywhere else, it was only
because of that basket. Because of that basket.